Well, hey guys, it's Tom. You know, this Renato Peri urban situation has really got me thinking because of several things. First of all, you know, both Renato and Peri have been longtime members of what many of us have called over the last year or so the YouTube community. Now, there have been a lot of people who have taken issue with that word community to describe what this is, this YouTube whatever. And they've said it's not a community, it's just a website. Others have argued strongly that it is a community. We just saw the South Tube gathering in Atlanta last weekend. We saw back in July the 777 gathering in New York. And certainly groups of friends have been formed here as a result of YouTube interaction. But YouTube itself as a community is something that continues to get to be met with skepticism by a lot of people. Excuse me. Now, both Paul and Peri have argued strenuously at different times that YouTube is a community. Now, I find it then to be very interesting that here we have two people, both of whom have established their citizenship within this community for a long time, having a conflict, and having a conflict about, ironically, about things that happened in the past having to do with community. Now, you know, I made a video about about memory and about how our memories are filtered through all kinds of emotional, motivational screens. And of course, that's an issue here. But the issue that I really wanted to talk about in this video briefly is whether or not, if YouTube is a community, whether or not we can change, or whether or not we can set some guidance for the way in which this community is going to do something that every community eventually has to come to terms with, and that is managing conflict. You know, no matter what community you're in, you know, monasteries, everything from monasteries to street gangs, the idea of communities having to establish ways of resolving conflict becomes almost one of the key defining elements of what kind of community that is. So now here we have two prominent members of the community having a conflict, and the issue is, how are you two guys gonna manage this conflict? Now, what we've seen so far are some relatively classic elements of conflict escalation, maybe gentle escalation, but escalation nonetheless. Peri started this thread by talking about Paul's videos about gay men and so on, and that quickly got him to reflect on Paul's history, his own personal history with Paul, and to, you know, articulate some things that have been pissing him off about Paul for a long time, as he put it in the title of his video. Paul then came back and said, you know, this bothers me because this is Peri. It bothers me, you know, I've had plenty of fights. I mean, he talks about, you know, the conflicts he's had in the past, all the way from the pleasant jousting that he describes with Greg Solomon to, you know, some of the less pleasant jousts that he's had. and says, you know, I don't want to have a fight with Peri about this, but, you know, if we have to fight, then bring it on. Now that's an escalation. Peri then comes back and says, hey, your personal attacks aside, you still haven't addressed the issues, and address the issues. That's not exactly an escalation in a classic sense. In other words, he didn't sort of try to see Paul's challenge of, if you want to get it on, let's get it on, with his own challenge of, okay, I'm ready to get it on. But, there was something to that said, he didn't address Paul's suggestion that he take down his videos and so on, which was a pretty direct challenge on Paul's part. Now Peri kind of took it up and sort of said, I don't know, I don't hear you addressing the issues here. So my question is now, and of course, if you read the comments to these videos, you see the kinds of things that we used to see in high school. Remember in high school, or even grammar school, in my case, I grew up in the Bronx, and in grammar school, what you'd hear throughout, something would happen in the morning. Some kid would bump some other kid in the hallway, or, what we would call it back then is rank on somebody's mother. Your mother's, whatever. And then you'd hear throughout the day, hey man, there's going to be a fight at 3 o'clock. These guys are going to, they're fighting out by the wall, which was where the handball courts were. They're going to fight out by the wall. And everybody would, throughout the day, everybody would be getting all excited. Here, oh yeah, man, they're going to get it on outside at the wall this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So what you see in the comments is kind of the buzz of, oh yeah, we're going to see something's going to happen here. There's going to be a fight. Now, that's the community sort of gathering around this event, which is clearly of some interest, right? I mean, there's a lot of interest being generated by this. I know people are going to call this drama, and if this is drama, it's drama of a humankind. This is my way of looking at it. It's drama of a humankind and not drama of a trumped up kind of fictitious kind. There's real conflict here. Make no mistake about it. There's real conflict here. Now, my question to you guys, Paul and Peri, is how are you going to resolve this conflict in a way that is in keeping with the things that you've said you stood for all the time that you've been here in this community? And that is that you wanted to see something different. Paul, you made an impassioned statement at one point in your videos here that Peri reflected on and quizzically kind of said, who's this? Isn't this the same person who said, how are we going to bomb each other after we look one another in the eye? Well, that's the question that I have for you guys now. How are you going to resolve this conflict in a way that is in keeping with your own values, the values that you said were important to you in your history here in the YouTube, whatever the hell this neighborhood is called? So that's the thought that came to me this morning, and I wanted to be sure to get this video out there to try to continue the conversation about what kind of community are we, how are we going to resolve conflicts in ways that are in keeping with what kind of community we think we want to be, and you guys being prominent citizens, how are you going to do this? Take it easy. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.